where breast milk is most contaminated are some of the places that are the places where toxic chemicals are dumped in the most. And the most contaminated breast milk in the world is actually in the Arctic Circle. So indigenous women in northern Canada and Alaska have the most contaminated breast milk in the world. Not because there's factories up there, because there's not really factories up there, but because the way the air moves, the weather patterns, all of the nasty like chemical air stuff from Northern Europe and North America go up in this stream and dump there. And so the food and water that they're drinking is so highly contaminated that they have the most contaminated breast milk. And again, what do we do about this? And we can say, oh, well, let's just move those people out of there because that's dangerous. No, of course not. But it is a reason that very specifically we need to stop contaminating our world with all of these chemicals. And we have comments, questions at this point?
Well, I find this interesting, was the lack of attention that the campaign, like the Nestle campaign, like the corporation, and part of this issue is like food justice or shaping your food is becoming, even starting from the day, even actually before a baby's even born. And so for the whole formula thing, and there's actually like codes, the code is there and it's not being addressed. Like, is there any organization? It's just like such a weak link of the whole like food and babies. And I mean, there's a lot of people working on GMOs and this other bigger picture for fighting. It's almost like we've missed such an important like beginning, you know, also. And it's why even this issue is so important, I think. But there's nobody working on kind of this bigger picture of, I mean, I know Nestle, they kind of cooled down a little bit for that issue. They got their hand slapped, but it's still really going on, and there isn't anyone able to enforce that, or what is it even enforced at? If somebody did, is it at like international law?
Yeah. So the Nestle boycott. First of all, when I was getting ready to do this last night, I was talking to other people who are like totally active in like food justice and community organizing, and I was like blah 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 Nestle boycott blah blah blah. Just like threw it in passing, and they looked at me like, what's the Nestle boycott? And I was like, looked at them back like, you don't know what the Nestle boycott is? And it was a really big wake-up call for me, for people who are active in this kind of conversation, to not know about a like 30-year-old boycott on the largest food manufacturer in the world. And that people active, you know, I expect that most people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis aren't going to know about it, but I kind of thought that people active in this conversation probably would. And part of the reason is because it is not very active in the United States. Nestle has done a really good job of trying to kind of cover themselves, make themselves look better, say like, we're not doing that anymore, and try to abide by some of the letter of more egregious parts of the law. And but the Nestle boycott is extremely active in other countries. If you were in this kind of a conversation talking about food or talking about parenting or talking about breastfeeding in Canada, you would know about the Nestle boycott. And there isn't even like a national Nestle boycott group in the US, and there are in like 20-something other countries. Yeah, 20 countries, which I think is interesting. But how it's enforced is it's an international code that countries sign onto, and then the individual country either does or does not incorporate it into their own laws. So some countries have, like India has an Infant Milk Substitutes Act. They actually have that. And so when Nestle placed an advertisement in 2000 in an article in a parenting magazine, there's actually a statute to say, you know, bad Nestle, you're not supposed to do that. Many other countries, like the United States, that's not a possibility. And so some of the things that they've tried to do to like make it okay in the U.S. is while the full code says no advertising of infant feeding products to the public, period, like no advertising. In the US, what they've done is say, well, you have to say breastfeeding and breast milk is best in every ad. Well, that's like the fine print on those like pharmaceutical ads, where they say like, you know, on the picture you can see like the happy like butterflies going, and the person looks all happy with their drug, and then at the same time the person is saying really fast like, you could die if you take this drug. I mean, it's very similar when they're talking about an infant formula ad, and it's saying like, this is just like breast milk, and it has the exact same proteins that are broken down just to make your baby's tummy, you know, feel good, and they use a lot of this just like breast milk kind of language, at the same time as at the very end it says, but of course, breast is best. Right. So it's a completely contradictory message that this is almost as good, and all we have to say is breast is best, and it is not almost as good. It's nowhere close as good. It's, you know, every possible question around the actual science and data of it is, it's not even close to as good. But they're able to get away with, as long as they put that breast is best in the end, they're able to get away with having that kind of ad. Another thing in the US is they're not allowed to put actual babies in the pictures. So you got a lot of really cute little bears, and bunnies, and other soft, cuddly, cute baby things. But you cannot put a human baby on infant formula in the US. But you can put them in the ads, apparently, just not on the actual package. And in the US, there's some enforcement of that kind of thing, but there's no enforcement. The US doesn't even support the actual international code at all. And at the same time, we see that the promotion, like the public health promotion of breast is best, is pretty flat. Like, it's pretty like, all it says is about the health of the baby, and that breast is best, and that's it, basically the bottom line. And there will be all these reasons why breast is best for baby. There's like a public health ad that's an asthma inhaler with a baby bottle nipple on the top, and it's, you know, the implication is if your baby drinks from a bottle, your baby's going to get asthma. But, and there's a lot, there's tons of money in breastfeeding promotion in the public health world. But there's zero conversation in the public health world about a lot of the financial, economic, and accessibility reasons why women aren't breastfeeding. Like, if we really wanted women to be able to breastfeed, not to have to, but to be able to successfully for an extended period of time, which the general consensus in pediatrics and public health is that babies should be exclusively breastfed for 6 months, and breastfed at all for at least 1 year, preferably 2 years. So if there was actually any like real impetus to actually make that happen, women would have to be able to work flexibly or not work for 6 months, and work flexibly or not work for 1 to 2 years. And there's no intention in that direction in the United States, in anywhere in policy or public health. Like, no one, have you ever heard anyone talk about, I mean, you know, we talk about this healthcare reform bill, and that was like big conversation. Have you ever heard anyone talk about like, oh, we should have what they have in Scandinavia and have 2 years of paid maternity leave? Like, not only does it, like, it's not even possible to bring up as a conversation, you know. It's so beyond, it's like, haha, that's so funny, you know, not even something we would even talk about. And again, that doesn't mean that women shouldn't be allowed to work when they have small children. You know, it's not about women's choice, and some women choose to work. It's about even having the opportunity to not work to be able to breastfeed. So,
did you see that? If you put your breast milk in a bottle, is that still the same?
It's not the same. Your baby is still getting breast milk, so that is still, you're still getting many of the specific health benefits. There's a couple of tricks with pumping, and a couple of questions about that. One is that pumping itself isn't going to get as much milk out as feeding at the breast. But for some women, it's not a problem at all. They make plenty of milk. They don't mind pumping. It's easy. It works. in that case, it's